It's a pleasure to be here. And I think Trond set it up well right in the beginning when he talked about the Industrial Liaison Program. We're a part of that, and I think it's a very relevant part of our whole strategy around innovation. I think innovation is changing from years past when you had a cloistered research facility to now it's important to us to engage with all of you, the startup community, universities, anywhere we can find relevant innovation on the outside of the company and partner with you or invest or whatever. So that's why we're here. But lighting, interesting, huge change happening in the world of lighting. You know, with the advent of the LED light source, it changed from an analog signal to a digital signal. And now we're connecting them together with a control wire. So here's a commercial lighting fixture in the old days. This is what it is now. It's a little mini computer stuck next to a light bulb. You know, you have microcontrollers, you have sensors, you have variable qualities of light, and it's connected. Connected is key, connected with a digital wire. And from there, the whole rules change on lots of things. So here's a quick snapshot of our vision. And you know, at the break or after, we'll talk about how a lot of the startups that are here today may relate to this. But connected lighting will become pervasive across our cityscapes, our intelligent buildings, our homes. And from there, it essentially becomes a ubiquitous sensor network. Because today, even commercial lighting have sensors embedded in them to even address energy conservation and to address state regulations like Title 24 in California, where lights next to a window have to sense daylight coming in and automatically dim. So if you have a ubiquitous sensor network across everywhere, you then add deep analytics to the data that you're collecting. Oftentimes, vertically market segment focused, say in the area of retail or in air quality, whatever. And there you get really actionable insight out of those analytics. And finally, it changes the nature of our business from a product company to a service company, from a product company to a content company. So big tectonic shifts happening in the area of lighting. So what actually has to happen, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive here, you know, and kind of layer things up. We've been in the lighting business for 125 years. More recently, we're starting to connect it together with the appropriate wireless and wired networking. Even that's a challenge. You know, what's the right bandwidth? What's the right scalability, et cetera? And that network has to support embedded sensors. There's huge amount of innovation happening in sensors. Smaller, lighter, sensing more things, cheaper. They become ubiquitous. But then everything else is software after that. And that's where it gets interesting, and that's where we need help, frankly. You know, we're collecting huge amounts of data. We develop a data platform that traverses all of our vertical silos, our vertical market segments, and therefore we can share data between retail and cityscapes and home. Deep analytics, perhaps where we partner. We're not an expert in all vertical market segments. And then a cloud platform on which all data now resides anyway. And then applications, an ecosystem, new business models, new subscription services. So this is the premise, and this is where the strength of lighting becoming an important platform for IoT. Lighting is everywhere, and it's ubiquitous. And the key, I came out of the sensor networking space for the past 10 years or so. The problem with sensor networking was the battery all the time. The thing with lighting, it's powered. So it's ubiquitous, it's powered, and it's dense. And so here's a couple of use cases to show how lighting is going to be so key in IoT. In the commercial office application segment, as I said, increasingly, lights across even this ceiling and across the windows out there have light sensors, they have occupancy sensors, and even heat sensors built in, a lot of them these days. From that, the data aggregates to the cloud. You'll essentially be able to tell the floor plan, the location, It can have all sorts of building data that can be shared with the building automation system. And I listed the kind of sensor types there, but from there, you can do a lot of things. The obvious one is optimize HVAC systems. A little bit less obvious is doing, say, scheduling maintenance and cleaning based on usage rather than just repeated. But the real money application is in if you can collect empirically how a building is utilized. This is the most expensive asset in your balance sheet. And every 5 years or 10 years, you have to renegotiate the lease. And the VP of the division is saying, yes, we need those 10 floors like we did last year and last decade and the decade before. But the workforce is changing. And if you talk to real estate professionals, the data about the empirical data around office utilization is worth a lot of money. And that's where the business opportunity is to be able to draw heat maps and to have empirical data on how is a building used, who's sitting in the, or not who's sitting in the desk, but how often is it used. And you know, it could be anywhere from 30 to 50% these days instead of 70 to 80%. Commercial retail application. Another interesting thing and breakthrough about light is you have now visible light communication where LEDs can be pulsed faster than the light the eye can see, and you can communicate data through the light. And in this case, there's huge retail application opportunity for two or three customers, or customers within this business model. First is the consumer, and the visible light communication can communicate with your cell phone and find out where you are in the store. And from there, if you opt in, you can have coupons pop up on your phone based on what you're looking at in the aisle. It's kind of spooky, but if you're looking at the ice cream and you say, hey, 50% off on chocolate sauce, and then so there's shopper engagement and shopper convenience, leading around the store. And then there's also applications, you can produce heat maps of where consumers go in a store, where they linger, where they don't linger, and that data becomes important to the retailer or the brand about how to effectively lay out a store and how to optimize kind of the shopper experience. Other kinds of applications, I mentioned this commercial lighting, but in a commercial space, but in the outside spaces are equally as exciting. And picture a smart street lighting network. Again, that's ubiquitous, that's a platform for sensors to collect data, to notice things, smell things, read things, whatever. In this case, air quality, embedding a small air quality sensor in every street light, street pole, and to begin to measure and map air quality at a much finer detail across the cityscape. And by the way, all these applications are based on startups that we're working with or have noticed. We get out to the West Coast a lot because there are a lot of startups on the West Coast, but I'm from the East Coast, and I don't want the West Coast to start overshadowing what's going on the East Coast. So we need to get really active here, even though I met some people from the West Coast today. But air quality sensors, there is increasingly important business opportunities with municipalities to map air quality in a dynamic way as it floats across the city. So that's one application. And the other one, there's another startup out in the West Coast called Shotstopper. And you can measure an audio sound and triangulate and find out where a gunshot is coming from and even what type of gun it's coming from. So another application. So that was just a couple of examples. This kind of wraps it up. Connected lighting really is changing. It's now becoming a sensor-enabled, data-driven platform. And I almost like to think of it as kind of perfect information for the built environment. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, and look forward to talking to you. Thanks.